Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, queues are getting longer at petrol stations across the country as Nigerians continue to grapple with the effect of fuel scarcity nationwide. Department of Petroleum Resources vows to sanction filling stations hoarding petroleum products and those selling at rates higher than the fixed price. Lagosians lament heavy traffic caused by long queues at filling stations and last-minute rush for the festive season. And the United Nations imposes fresh sanctions on North Korea over missile programs.
On business news tonight, International Monetary Fund forecasts 2.1% economic growth for Nigeria in 2018 amid vulnerable recovery from recession.
On sports news, the football world looks on as Spanish giants and arch rivals Barcelona and Real Madrid prepare to face off in this season's third El Clasico at the Santiago Bernabeu.
And from Abuja, a governance support group tells President Muhammadu Buhari to build on successes of his government by implementing policies favorable to the common man.
We begin tonight with the lingering fuel crisis in most parts of the country that's left many people spending long hours on queues at filling stations. In spite of assurances from the NNPC and the PPMC that there's enough supply of the products, the situation at petrol stations reveals a different story, with the queues getting longer. From Ondo to Anambra and Enugu, the story is the same, with residents facing difficult times.
Push to start. This time it's push to queue. Not for engine failure, but lack of fuel. Vehicles, small and great, with empty tanks and long faces. This is Anambra State, where the fuel scarcity has a domino effect of increase in pump price of petrol.
I have been in total filling station for past 2 hours now. So before getting to my turn, before in the tank exhaust stage.
We are calling on the government to look into it and see what they can do so as to stop the suffering of the masses.
The principal secretary to the state governor calls for sanction of erring marketers.
Is it beyond us to take a statistics of people, outlets that sell during this Christmas, despite the coalition of them to hoard, and then begin to sanction those who don't sell?
It's a cat and mouse game for some defaulters in Enugu State who shut down operations by day, then opened the filling stations by night to sell at exorbitant prices. The Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, have sealed no fewer than 7 petrol stations in Enugu State for hoarding product. In Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, the zonal coordinator of the DPR says the scarcity is artificial.
We have on record that they received 40,000 liters yesterday, and we cannot find out the 40,000, so we are sealing it off.
Tempers flare at this filling station, even as the DPR inspects petrol stations. And some get the hammer. In Ondo State, as the motorists queue with their cars, so consumers queue with their kegs. A mad dash to jostle for position, resulting in this melee. Meanwhile, the motorists continue to lament.
Some filling stations do have fuel, but they don't want to sell, and I don't know why.
And the DPR continues to seal.
We sealed up to 10 stations. We sanction up to 10 stations. And all the necessary fines are being posed on those stations.
As the country continues to wait for decisive action from the federal government, Christmas holiday is barely 2 days away, and still fuel scarcity persists is no laughing matter.
And from the nation's capital, the Department of Petroleum Resources is reading out the Riot Act to petrol stations to stop hoarding fuel products. The spokesman for the DPR in Abuja, Mr. Saidu Bulama, gave the warning when he led a team on an inspection tour of some petrol stations in Abuja. He warned that appropriate sanctions will be meted out to defaulting filling stations.
But Long queues is what now adorns major streets in the federal capital city, as residents queue for hours before getting the product. And for those who have emergencies, they have to make do with high prices offered by black marketers.
This is something that has to cost 1,450 in the filling station, but you can say I'm buying at the rate of 3,500. So it's a very bad situation we find ourselves, especially at this period of time, which is festive period. Well, I have to because I have an emergency situation to catch up at Mina. Definitely, I have to. And it goes with time. So I cannot wait queuing for this to miss with my appointment. It won't work.
In an attempt to address the situation, the Department of Petroleum Resources embarked on an inspection tour to check hoarding of the product. Officials of the DPR warned petrol stations to comply with the directive to dispense the product to motorists or face sanctions.
We were able to get about 4 filling stations that diverted. And what is the new style they do? They will just discharge 1 or 2 compartments and leave with the rest. So we've served them with letters. All the marketers, depending on the quantity, some 15,000, some 11,000, we've charged them 3 million and above each to pay into TSA account to serve as deterrent. That is at 275 naira per litre.
At one of the filling stations currently undergoing renovation, DPR officials allege supply of the product but promised to investigate the matter.
This is Tony Set filling station under renovation. Completely, they have no business to do, but we discovered that on 11th, 33,000 of PMS was allocated to them. On 13th, another 33,000 of PMS is allocated to them. So in this kind of scenario, this is a clear case of diversion. But the owner of the station may not be aware. So the clear advice we should give PPMC depot is to make sure that they always cross-check with DPR before they allocate product to filling stations.
Government has promised to address the situation in the coming days. Until then, residents will have to contend with a long wait for the product in different petrol stations.
And here in Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, the situation appears to be reaching breaking point. Our correspondent, who was at the popular Ojota bus stop today, reported that vehicular movement was at a standstill for several hours.
To Christmas, and the signs here from Ojota, Lagos, a strategic location connecting several routes in Lagos, is not a very good telltale sign for many Lagosians, especially at its few days to Christmas times, and this is portending a very unpleasant Christmas for Lagosians if these signs of traffic continues in Lagos State. But unfortunately, there have been no signs of traffic officials to regulate and ease the movement of traffic around this area. From Ojota, Lagos, Benga Ashuru reporting for Channels Television News.
And while many commuters are stranded on Lagos roads, the city's airport is also experiencing high passenger traffic, and this is not unconnected to the Christmas holiday. At the General Aviation Terminal in Lagos, a large number of passengers were stranded as Arik Air did not fly on schedule, owing to what passengers describe as a cabin crew strike. An airport authority official who spoke off camera said other flights had been taking off from the terminal, except for Arik Air.
We are told that Arik are on strike, but that the issue is resolved. Policies should be put in place so that this type of occurrence in special festivity like this should not continue to repeat itself, because it seems as if almost every year it's the same thing that keep on repeating itself. People are always suffering during Christmas.
I feel we are not structured, and we need to change in so many areas. And this is one area that we need to have the change done. Airlines should respect passengers' interests, and customer service is very essential. So the airlines are required to respect passengers.
Now, when Channels Television reached the media spokesperson of the airline, he said that the management is working out how to resolve the issues as soon as possible. Now, let's discuss these challenging state of affairs. I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the Southwest Chairman of the Independent Marketers Association of Nigeria, Debo Ahmed. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10. Right, it was difficult for you to even move around and come in here, which is why we're doing it this way. But with every passing day, this scarcity bites harder and the buck passing continues. From the marketers' perspective, we hear that they're not buying at the regulated price, causing them to sell the way they're selling. Now, is that true? Well, if you can hear me, I'm just asking for your perspective, the marketer's perspective, whether it's true or not that they're having to sell the way they are selling because they're not buying at the regulated price, if you can hear me.
And for those who have emergencies, they have to make do with high prices offered by black marketers.
Here's something.
Long queues is what now adorns major streets in the federal capital city. As residents queue hours before
hello, Joe, how are you?
I'm fine. I can hear you really clearly. Could you just continue with the points you were trying to make?
Yeah, initially, the problem was the pricing. But for now, it is not the pricing. It is the issue of supply. So we are not really getting to buy at a higher price. So we can't sell more than what we are selling at about 145 naira per liter.
Scarcity has a domino effect of increase in pump price of petrol.
I have been in total filling station for past 2 hours now. So before getting to my turn, before
long queues is what now adorns major streets in the federal capital city. As residents queue for hours before...
All right, well, the government initially put this down to panic buying, saying that they've doubled supply and there's sufficient quantity of the product. Then what then is the problem if they're saying that there's sufficient quantity of the product, but that doesn't seem to be what you're saying?
Well, really, there have not been any panic buying. This issue started around October. We were having that little bit of... short in supply, and the private depots were at it and they were putting some prices on the product. But later, the issue was resolved. It was only on demand. I mean, it was only on supply. So we're having the issue of supply. Nobody's doing panic buying. There is no supplies in the system as of now. There is no supply in the system at all.
Okay, well, the Department for Petroleum Resources, that's the DPR, says that they're monitoring the directive to sell the product, though you're saying there's none of it at all. Obviously, that's not the experience as we see empty pumps and fuel queues stretching for miles. What measures do you think should be put in place to put an end to all this while we're passing the buck?
Yeah, really, the DPR is trying. They are doing their work. And there is no marketer that is selling above what the government said we should sell. But when you don't have supplies, you close down your station. So most of the marketers have closed down their stations. And they are not selling because they are not getting the supplies. Passing the bulk, entities have to do what they have to do. They have to give us a lot of products. The product has to be supplied into the system so that this scarcity can go off. Without the enough product going through this period, the scarcity will still linger. There's no panic buying at all. It's just the system that there is so much supplies of petroleum products in the system.
All right, Southwest Chairman of the Independent Marketers Association of Nigeria, Debo Ahmed, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the news at 10 tonight. And in part 2, after the break, federal government launches digital broadcasting switchover in as ongoing media revolution continues. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.